man that will be very busy on carb day with far more important things than seeing me drink beer. Although if I had a Busch Light, maybe he would join us for a cheers with that. He is one of the owners of Meyer Shank Racing. He is Michael Shank on this Tuesday morning. Michael, thanks for joining us, man.
Love being here. Thanks for having me, guys.
How we feeling? Felix Rosenqvist, inside of row 2. Helio, Marcus Ericsson, 14th and 16th. I fairly good would be my amateur eye. What are your thoughts with your 3 cars?
Fairly good. I think more than anything, really disappointed we didn't get the pole for Felix. He had the fastest car on Sunday. I'm convinced of it. She didn't pole that last run, and is really disappointing for all the effort and all the stuff we do, 7 months ago working on qualifying setup here, but, listening, starting 4th is just fine. And we can go from there. But an exciting day from the rain taking it out on Saturday to kind of how we all ran it Sunday. I thought it was a good day.
So, Michael, when you look at what you just laid out with Felix, how quickly do you have to kind of turn the page? You want to obviously be better in that situation or maybe get more out of what you put into that car, but at the same time, not a bad position by any means.
Well, if I'm telling you the truth, it was really hard to get over for me and some of the guys, such an effort goes into making these cars that fast around this place. And when it doesn't quite go your way, when it seemingly is going your way, it's really, really hard to accept. So we go into investigation mode. We try to figure out what happened. We try to learn for all 3 cars. And for the future more than anything. It is really a finicky track in qualifying trim. And then you see wide spreads on team cars, on some of their cars being faster than the others. And it's a bizarre situation out of the Speedway that is tricky to explain.
It's the voice of Michael Shank. Again, the 3 cars there from Meyer Shank Racing, Felix Rosenqvist, Helio Castroneves, and Marcus Armstrong. One more kind of on qualifying weekend. I feel like from an owner that has certainly progressed his way through the sport into the full-time entries here. Obviously, circumstances, I think, dictated, but we didn't have bumping this year. How much do you think that needs to be a piece of the 500? How do you view it from full-time to somebody that obviously at some point in IndyCar you weren't a full-time team? How do you kind of sift through all of that when it comes to bump day?
I feel a couple of ways about this. Number one, I think is a tremendous tradition that I don't want to see go away. Now, thankfully, as we go forward and IndyCar have dictated, going forward to run the regular season, you have to be a franchise team. However, to do the Indy 500, you can still be an open team, which I'm grateful for that part of it. And my hope is that we have 2 or 3 cars each year that are in the bumping position. I just think it adds a level. Some of the most exciting times I've ever seen are during bubble days and bubble runs, like with the McLaren cars a few years ago and Alonso. And those were just hair-raising. I went down on the pit lane myself just to feel the energy. I think I did it to punish myself to make sure we're never, ever, ever in that position as a team. But, man, what an exciting thing for TV and for the folks at the track.
Again, Michael Shank with us here, Meyer Shank Racing. I was listening to a driver a few weeks back, Michael, say that if you want to do the Indy 500 right, you need about $1.5 million. You think that's an accurate figure?
1.5 to 2. Yeah, that's accurate. And some of the stuff is activation. So whoever is your sponsor, you also have to fund what you're doing for them out of the money. So it can be 1.5 to 2 pretty easily these days. Everything's just more money. We have an engine you have to lease. You have a hybrid you have to lease. You have tires you have to lease. And the number one thing you have to do is you have to hire people, and they are expensive. So it adds up pretty quick.
Michael, pivoting to Helio Castroneves for a second, the drive for 5, you've been around him for years. How much respect do you have for the guy in his craft as he gets up in age, but still has this desire to go out there and compete at the highest level?
I have all the respect. And everything I muster goes to Helio, respect-wise. He's really, really a master Jedi at that track. And we focused on getting him qualified better, which we did this year. not ultimately where we wanted, but we put a lot of effort to get him 10 to 12 grid spots up, and he is. We feel if he's in that position and his car is where he wants it, it'll be on, and he'll get in the top 5 before the first 100 laps. And I can tell you he was pretty giddy when he got out of the car yesterday.
Okay.
Again, it'll be the 14th spot there for Helio Castroneves. Recent years, 22nd, 20th, 20th, 27th, some starting spots, and yet he's moved up in all of those years. So
Every one of them. Yep.
Right, to Michael's point, certainly a great chance here for the drive for 5. I did want to throw one at you, Michael, from a I don't know, I was thinking back to like when he won in 21. That was that your first year that you ran 2 cars at the 500? I was trying to remember this.
It is. It was his first race with us.
Okay, how did
First
that
race.
I guess how did that relationship start? I think almost so many people were like, "Wait a minute, who's this team that Helio Castroneves is with?" And then, you guys win it in just that unbelievable duel that he had with Palou.
Yeah, so we'd put a program together with the Auto Nation and a couple of our partners to run a second car for a limited amount of time that year. This was race 1. Helio had driven for me in the sports car world back in 2007, I think it was, at Daytona. So I had a relationship with him anyways. And when Jim and I sat down and said, okay, we're going to do the second car now, who's going to get in it? Who gives us the best shot? And, we saw, Roger had, separated himself from Helio at that time after a tremendous run. And we just thought, we looked at the numbers, and we just thought he was still producing. Certainly for what we need, which was a really solid person at the 500, because at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. And by the way, that was the best thing we ever did, Jim Meyer and I.
Again, Jim Meyer, of course, Meyer Shank Racing there. Michael Shank with us right now as we're chatting here. No cars on the track each of the next 3 days. Michael, I'm curious, as an owner, you're obviously very preoccupied with what your drivers are doing yesterday. When you watch what happened with Alexander Rossi, Pato O'Ward caught up in it, what were kind of your emotions, and I guess how much thought have you given what those teams are going through here in the last 24 hours?
It really sucks. It's really bad. Okay. And I can tell you, I'm on the stand. I look up, I hear the call on the radio about the crash, and I look up, and the first thing I'm doing, I'm scanning for where our cars are. Once I clear that, then we're just trying to check on everybody who was in it to make sure they're okay. But it's a huge amount of work for folks to switch cars. We went through it last year with Marcus Armstrong. Not fun. All that work that goes into those cars doesn't even get to race. It's just a brutal spot. And I think we all have to go through it at least once. It's part of the ritual of loving the Indy 500, and it's a tough deal.
Michael, can you perhaps go into more detail as to what it entails when you switch cars for those who are not familiar with how that whole process unfolds?
Yeah, the first thing you do is you analyze we call it the tub or the chassis, the engine, and the hybrid unit and the gearbox, right? You got to look at these key pieces, and if they're hurt bad enough not to use them again. We typically don't like to change the tub out, the frame, you might call it, if we don't have to. But a lot of times it'd take a punch, and you have to change them out. So we can kind of have a backup car kind of half built. As per the rules with any car, we're not allowed to have a full backup car. So all of us have a half-built spare in the trailers that we can have done in a perfect world in 4 hours, back upright, operational again. But it is a lot of work. And a lot of the times, those backup cars don't have the aero configuration that we all work so hard for on our main speedway car.
I know as an Ohio State football fan, you're not used to changing coaches too often, but I made this analogy earlier, and I'm curious if it applies here. And again, the update on Alexander Rossi sounds good, all things considered. Sounds like he'll be in the car come Friday morning. But you always hear athletic directors in college sports, Michael, say you always have to have the list ready for potential coaches in your drawer. As harsh as it sounds, do you have to have a list ready if indeed all of a sudden your driver suffers an injury and you've got to get somebody in that car for Sunday?
Yeah, we have a reserve driver almost always on call that's approved by IndyCar that can get in the car, and I've had to have that happen a couple times. It's not fun. Again, not fun at all. But I'm sure they have plan A and B for Alex in case something goes wonky this week. and they'll put that person in place. We all have the same problem, and we all are starting to employ kind of reserve drivers these days.
Again, that's the voice of Michael Shank. His car's Felix Rosenquist. Chatted with Felix earlier in the week, and that man was quite confident in his car. I think you saw it, even though the qualifying speed maybe didn't get all the way to the pole. Helio Castroneves, 14th. Marcus Armstrong, 16th. Outside of, a Busch Light at Binkley's maybe to celebrate on Sunday, what are the goals, Michael Shank, come the 110th running for your team?
Well, if we're there at Binkley's on Sunday night with Busch Lights, a really, really good thing happens. So we welcome everybody there.
Do you feel like there are realistic chances to be in victory lane with a couple of these cars?
Oh wow! Well, yeah. I mean, my boys are good there. My guys are. Marcus doesn't have as much time, but he's really catching on quick. But Helio and Felix are Jedi masters as far as I'm concerned. There. We have to give them a car, and we have to give them pit stops. If we give them those two things, they will be in the top 5. Then it's kind of up to them to do a little trim at the end and turn the boost up if we can, get the power where we need it, and go for the W.
Certainly it's a team not to write off by any means. They've got a great opportunity coming up with multiple cars on Sunday. Michael, I've always enjoyed hearing your conversations with others. Thanks for making time with us, and we cannot wait for this weekend.
Anytime, all the time, guys. Thank you.